Let's go now to the Shadow Climate Change and Energy Minister, Ted O'Brien, who joins me from Maroochydore in Queensland. Thanks for joining us, Ted. We're all, the whole nation's looking to the National Cabinet meeting on Friday when supposedly Anthony Albanese and Chris Bowen and Jim Chalmers are going to solve the energy supply and cost crisis. We know from revelations this afternoon, courtesy of Andrew Clennell on this station, that they're going to talk about a cap on coal prices of $125 a tonne. That's about a quarter of what coal can be sold for at the moment. And a cap on gas of about $13 a kilojoule, which I think is about half of what they're selling at the moment. Tell us what impact this will have on the market domestically and internationally.
Well, Chris, I think what we do know is over recent weeks in particular, we've seen a rolling series of manic thought bubbles coming from the government. This is the latest. Whether or not it comes to fruition, only time will tell. Thankfully, we don't have long to wait. The market is currently frozen right now. People aren't signing up to contracts because the government has made it very clear they plan to intervene. If it is true that they are looking at price caps, the number one question that will need to be asked is how does that solve the problem of supply? Doesn't matter which energy expert you talk to, those who really know their stuff have been saying now for months, if you want to get prices down, you need more supply, you need more gas in the market. So let's see what mechanism they come up with, whether it be controlling exports, whether it be price caps, reservation schemes. The number one question is, how is this going to impact supply? It's a supply problem, deserves a supply solution.
If they do impose these caps on those prices, what will it do to electricity prices? Will this not flow through quickly to lower electricity prices?
Well, it depends on what happens in the short term and long term, Chris. If at the end of the day they put it on a price cap and there's no solution for supply, prices are going to go up. Over the long term, prices will go up.
Well, we know about the long term. We know we're headed for a shambles long term. I'll get to that. But in the short term, will these price caps not deliver at least a short-term reduction in electricity prices?
Chris, there's no answer to your question until they actually table something more than a thought bubble through the media. In the absence of any detail, it's anybody's guess, and we shouldn't be playing a guessing game with Australia's energy market because it's households and businesses that are paying the price right now. They've waited over 6 months for a solution from a government that promised them they had the solutions. Until we see the detail, nobody knows. But what we do know is if you put a price cap which is lower than the market has it, then demand goes up, supply goes down. That creates a gap. Therefore, this is a supply problem. So whatever they put on the table, how's it going to solve for supply?
Now, the supply problem, which is going to continue to create problems for this country for many, many years to come, is brought about by renewable energies policies, is brought about by emissions reductions policies introduced and expanded by your government and now looking to be expanded further by Labor, because you've deliberately forced out coal-fired generation and gas-fired generation. So now we find ourselves caught short. Yet Chris Bowen had this to say yesterday.
This crisis is caused by coal and gas prices. Anybody who says it's caused by renewables is lying, and that needs to be called out. Renewables are the solution to this crisis, not the cause.
Is he right?
No, he is wrong. And the more the government comes out later this week with an intervention in the market that puts big government at the centre, the more they are handing over the reins of Australia's energy market to Chris Bowen. The thought of Chris Bowen being at the centre of Australia's entire energy system, Chris, that is enough to send a shiver down the spine of every energy user, everyone in the supply chain throughout this country. It would be a disaster. He clearly does not understand how economics works.
Yeah, you're saying he's wrong because you're saying it is the push to renewables, forcing out coal and gas, that has led us to this supply and price crisis.
A speed and scale of renewable rollout, like Labor is seeking to deliver, is forcing a premature closure of coal-fired power stations.
Sure, but Labor didn't get us. Labor didn't get us to this point. You know where I'm going with this, right? Because this is your own policies as a federal coalition government promoting renewables and forcing out gas and coal have helped lead us to this position.
Chris, I disagree with that. There's a key word that defines the coalition's approach in the past, and it has to define it in the future, and that is balance. You need to strike the right balance. And you just got to look at the scoreboard, right, where we had the balance right between reducing emissions, keeping reliability and prices down. The last term of government, we got prices down, 8% for households, 10% for businesses, 12% for industry, while still delivering on emissions reduction.
This balance hasn't been thrown out of whack in the last 6 months. This is the culmination. We're seeing the culmination of years of policy.
Chris, it has been thrown out of balance the last 6 months, and that's why we've seen it in people's prices. We had our then Energy Minister, Resource Minister, every second day engaging with industry, sometimes tough conversations to ensure they are pouring supply into the market. That kept prices down. This government has refused to engage with industry. I've been talking with industry again today. They haven't got a clue what's happening with the government.
Yeah, well, the Labor Party doesn't like talking to gas and coal industry figures because they like to demonise them and say that they're destroying the planet. Let me move on then to solutions. There is one significant Labor Party leader in this country who's prepared to talk practically about low emissions energy solutions, and that's the Premier of South Australia, Peter Malinauskas. Here's what he told me last month.
Chris, I'm on the record and have been for some time, well before I went into Parliament, that I actually think nuclear power does have a role to play because the simple fact is it's a baseload source of energy that is decarbonised, virtually no carbon emissions. So it should be a technology that's on the table globally in our effort to decarbonise.
So that's Peter Malinauskas on this program last week. He continues to talk like that, prompting the Prime Minister to slap him down the other day.
I think you've got the issue of waste and you've got where it goes. So I think it's a distraction from what we need to do. That's my position, and it hasn't changed. I have a great deal of respect for Mally, but everyone's entitled to get one or two things wrong.
There you go. Peter Malinauskas slapped down by Anthony Albanese. What's your interpretation of the Prime Minister not wanting Labor to even discuss this crucial issue?
The Premier of South Australia has an open mind, as does the opposition leader in South Australia. The Prime Minister has knocked them down, which means he has a closed mind. So right now, we are amidst an energy crisis. Everybody knows it's going to get worse with Labor's policies, and the Prime Minister is prepared to come out and say, really, he's got a closed mind. I think it's an absolute disgrace. And doesn't it tell you a lot, Chris, that you have one Labor leader saying, I've got an open mind to a national conversation about nuclear energy, and it hits the front page of the papers. We're at such a low ebb with the Labor Party being so ideologically driven on how to solve what really is a problem for engineers and economists, that we've got the Prime Minister saying he's not prepared to even have a national conversation about the industrial scale, zero emissions technology the rest of the world is embracing, and he's prepared to slap down one of his own for having the common sense to say, I'm open-minded, let's have a conversation.
Now, Malinauskas uses a similar line to Chris Bowen, and that is that nuclear energy is not economic in Australia. Are they wrong?
They certainly have no evidence behind it because to date, there has been no economic assessment of the role that nuclear energy can play in Australia's future energy mix. And that's the problem. They're basing that on absolutely nothing. I tell you what, the United States has decided that the economics stack up. So does France, so does Canada, so does the UK, so does China, India, Taiwan. I mean, you name it. We've got 33 countries right now in the world saying the economics stack up for nuclear energy. Another 50 countries saying the economics stack up for nuclear energy. They are partners for renewables. They provide 24/7 baseload capacity, and they ramp up, ramp down as the grid changes. But for some reason, Labor knows different.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Ted. As we're experiencing right now, the economics of the push to renewables don't stack up. That's why we're in this crisis. Thanks for joining us. Ted O'Brien there, who's the Shadow Climate Change and Energy Minister, joining us from sunny Queensland there.